Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where secrets don't stay buried, and the truth always finds a way out. Buckle up. This story doesn't start with a wedding. It starts with a will, and what's hidden inside it will leave you speechless. My phone buzzed during the eulogy. Not out loud. I'd set it to silent out of respect, but the vibration was enough to draw my attention. When I glanced down, I saw a name I didn't recognize. Barrister Quinn Associates. And a preview of the message. Urgent. Regarding Mr. Elliot Remlin's posthumous clause activation. Private eyes only. Private eyes only? What was that supposed to mean? I turned to look at my wife. She was seated next to me in the front pew, wearing a black designer coat and oversized sunglasses even though we were indoors. Her hand gripped the program tightly, the knuckles pale, but her face didn't move. Not once. Not when they showed her childhood photos on the screen. Not when the priest choked up recalling her father's generosity. Not even when the casket was wheeled away. I watched her lean slightly toward her purse and check her phone. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Let me pause here and tell you something uncomfortable. I already knew something was wrong, but I hadn't said anything, because I was scared of the answer. The whole week before her father's funeral, Callie had been unusually calm. No tears, no stories, no reminiscing. She hadn't even called her brother. Instead, she was on Zoom every day. Hushed voices, spreadsheets, and documents she never used to care about. I asked once what she was working on, and she said, just cleaning up loose ends. I figured she meant funeral planning. Now, sitting next to her, I realized she was planning something else entirely. After the service, I wasn't allowed into the private reading of the will. The lawyer said it was for direct bloodline members only, and since I wasn't mentioned in the initial holdings document, I was told to wait in the car, like a forgotten chauffeur. 2 hours later, she walked out of the building with a champagne bottle in one hand and her phone pressed to her ear. She didn't look at me. She just said, "We're done here," and walked straight to the other side of the parking lot, where a black car was already waiting. She got in. I sat there stunned. Then another notification popped up on my phone. You've been removed from joint account 1349. Balance, $0. 00. Another one followed. Filing received. Petition for divorce, Circuit Court of Cook County. It had been 28 minutes since the will was read. 28 minutes since she learned her inheritance had come through. $250 million. And the first thing she did was cut me out of her life. But what she didn't know, not yet, was that her father had left behind more than just money. He left behind a secret clause, one that had my name written all over it. And when she heard it, she turned pale. I didn't go home that night. Technically, I didn't even have a home to return to anymore. My keycard was deactivated not just from our building, but from the parking garage too. The security guard told me with an apologetic shrug, "Your wife left strict instructions. Said you'd understand." Understand? All I understood was that one morning I was her husband, and by sunset I was just some guy standing outside our condo with a duffel bag and a dead phone battery. No call, no explanation, no dignity. The next morning, I sat in the diner down the street from our old place, ordered black coffee and oatmeal I didn't touch. The waitress asked me twice if I was okay. I just nodded and stared at the condensation on the window. At exactly 9:04 a.m., I walked to the attorney's office, the same one from the text, the same one that had contacted me during the funeral. The receptionist looked startled when I gave my name. "You're Mr. Curtis Remlin?" "I am." "One moment. Mr. Quinn has been waiting for you." Waiting? I was escorted into a dim wood-paneled room that smelled like old paper and colder revenge. Across from me sat a tall, silver-haired man in a tailored navy suit. No smile, just a folder in front of him. "Your father-in-law left something for you," he said. Privately, it was to be revealed only if certain conditions were triggered. What kind of conditions? He opened the folder slowly, like it was radioactive. "Your wife filing for divorce within 48 hours of the estate hearing," which, as I understand, she did. I nodded, jaw tight. He slid a document across the desk. It was handwritten, and it wasn't a legal contract, it was a letter. From Elliot. To Curtis, the only man my daughter ever fooled into loving her more than herself. I didn't know what to expect, but I sure didn't expect that. The letter went on to explain how Elliot had long suspected that Callie was waiting for his death not out of grief, but opportunity. That she'd treated people like moves on a chessboard, and that I'd been the pawn she underestimated most. His words. But the real bombshell was on the second page. In the event of her filing for divorce upon my passing, the estate sum of $250 million will remain untouched, unless she remains legally married to Curtis for 5 additional years. The funds will be held in trust, managed jointly by Curtis and the estate executor. Any premature dissolution of the marriage on her part will forfeit her claim entirely. Couldn't breathe. The man across from me was now watching my reaction carefully, like he was afraid I might faint or punch the wall. She doesn't know yet, he added calmly. You're allowed to inform her. Or not. Entirely your call. I left that office in a fog, clutching the letter like it was a detonator. Callie had filed for divorce thinking she was free. That she'd won. She cut me out thinking the game was over. But her father made sure it had only just begun. And when I showed up at her lawyer's office an hour later, she wasn't prepared for what I was holding. Not at all. She turned pale visibly, like her soul realized something her brain hadn't caught up to yet. Why are you here? She asked coldly. I placed the letter on the table, slid it toward her, and said, Read. Slowly. What happened next changed everything. Callie didn't touch the envelope at first. She stared at it like it might bite her. Her attorney, some sleek guy named Harmon who looked like he practiced his frown in the mirror, leaned over and tried to grab it instead. I slid it farther across the table, stopping it with one finger. Callie reads it, I said, keeping my voice steady. Aloud. Her mouth twitched into the kind of grin she used to give to waiters who brought the wrong wine. Dismissive. Condescending. She leaned back in her seat, crossed her legs slowly, and said, Curtis, I know this is hard for you, but dragging out the inevitable is. Read. She rolled her eyes but pulled out the letter, her perfectly manicured fingers barely creasing the page. She started reading in that fake sweet voice she used at fundraisers, probably thinking she was about to uncover some sentimental throwaway. To Curtis, the only man my daughter ever fooled into loving her more than herself. She read, laughing once through her nose. Wow, charming, Dad. But then her voice slowed. As she hit the section about the inheritance clause, line 12 specifically, her face stopped moving. The words stuck in her throat. The smile disappeared. She went pale like someone had just unplugged her. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered something. She shoved the paper into his chest. Is this even enforceable? She snapped. I didn't answer. I just let it hang there while Harmon flipped through the pages, brow furrowed, lips moving silently. It's airtight, he mumbled. I mean, unless you want to challenge your father's competency before death. But with this level of detail and the trust arrangement already in place, it's going to be nearly impossible. Her eyes shot toward me, furious. What did you do? I didn't do anything, I said. Your dad did. I stood, calmly. I could feel my heart thudding in my ribs, but I didn't let it show. I'll see you at the house later, I said. Unless you've locked me out of that too. She didn't respond. Just sat there like someone had dumped ice water down her spine. The look on her face was worth every second of humiliation she'd made me feel the week before. But here's the thing I didn't expect. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt numb. I walked down the courthouse steps into the parking lot, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a bitter kind of silence wrap around me. Not peace. Not satisfaction. Just this awful, hollow space where love used to live. She'd planned everything. The timing. The exit. The erasure of me from her new life. All of it. But her father had been one step ahead. And now, because of a single piece of paper, she was stuck. With me. Or rather, stuck without the money if she walked. Later that night, I got a call. Unknown number. I answered. It was Callie. Her voice was soft. almost pleading. "Can we talk?" she said. And just like that, the game shifted again. She asked me to meet at the lake house. Not the penthouse downtown, not the lawyer's office. The lake house. The one her father gave us as a wedding gift and then tried to take back 3 times. I hadn't stepped foot there in over a year. Not since the furnace broke. And Callie decided it was too rustic for weekends. But now, suddenly it was good enough for a meeting. When I pulled up, I half expected the lights to be off and the door locked. But no. The house glowed like a memory. Porch light on, candles flickering in the windows, even the table on the deck set for 2. I almost laughed. It looked like a dinner date, like we were about to celebrate something. She opened the door barefoot, wearing the sweater I'd bought her on our 5th anniversary. Her hair was pulled back like she used to wear it when we still had inside jokes. She smiled, not the smug kind, not yet, but a soft one. The kind that used to melt me before I learned better. "Thanks for coming," she said, voice like warm tea. I didn't respond, just walked past her, into the living room where the fireplace was going and the air smelled faintly like sandalwood and manipulation. "I made dinner," she added, trailing behind me. "What do you want, Callie?" I asked, still not sitting. "The money or the marriage?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair." "No?" Neither was stripping the accounts and filing the papers behind my back. Her composure cracked for a second, but then she pivoted. She always knew how to pivot. "Curtis, what if we just pressed pause on everything? No lawyers, no headlines. We could just stay married, fulfill the clause. We don't even have to live together. 5 years. Then we part ways quietly, cleanly. You get half the trust. We both walk away rich." There it was. No apology. No guilt. Just negotiation. I finally sat down, just to feel something solid beneath me. "And if I say no?" I asked. Her eyes darkened. "Then neither of us gets anything. And I think we both know you can't afford that." She didn't mean it cruelly. That was the worst part. She said it like she was doing me a favor. Like she still believed she held all the power. Maybe she did. "I'm not like you, Callie," I said quietly. "I can live without the money. You say that now. But 5 years from now, when you're still budgeting groceries and I'm flying private." "You won't be flying anywhere," I interrupted, "unless you can afford it on a substitute teacher's salary. Because guess what? You walk, you lose. Your father made sure of it." The air between us turned colder than the lake outside. She stepped closer, her voice shifting to a low, sultry hum. "Curtis, we could make this fun. Pretend to be a couple again. No expectations. Just 2 people who used to love each other." I looked her dead in the eye. "Used to." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. "I'm pregnant." For a second, I honestly couldn't breathe. I didn't move, didn't blink. I just stood there trying to process the word she dropped like a grenade in the middle of that perfectly curated living room. Pregnant. The candles flickered. The lake outside barely made a sound. And yet everything inside my head felt like it was cracking open all at once. "Since when?" I asked finally. She smiled again. It wasn't a joyful smile. It was practiced. Like she'd been waiting for me to ask that exact question. 6 weeks. She said smoothly, then added, "I found out the morning after the will reading. So let me get this straight. In the space of 48 hours, my wife had inherited a $250 million fortune with strings attached, filed for divorce behind my back, locked me out of our accounts and home, and then discovered she was carrying my child?" I didn't say anything. I just walked to the fireplace and stared at the flames for a long time. "I didn't tell you right away because, well, you were angry. I figured it would only make things worse." "That's convenient," I muttered. She tilted her head. "Are you saying you don't believe me?" I didn't answer that directly. What I did say was, "Have you seen a doctor?" "I have an appointment next week." "And you just found out, without taking a test together, without calling me, without anything?" She stepped toward me again, but this time I stepped back. Her charm wasn't working anymore. I wasn't interested in dinner or candles or whatever fantasy she was building in her head. I wasn't a fool. I had a calendar in my head too. And Callie and I hadn't touched each other in over 2 months. You said 6 weeks? I repeated, my voice steadier now. We hadn't been together for at least 9. The moment I said it, the energy in the room shifted. Her expression didn't crack. Not yet. But I saw her pause, just for a beat. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue. But then she caught herself. Closed it. Looked down. It's complicated, she finally said. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I'll bet it is. She tried to pivot again. She always did. It doesn't matter whose baby it is. What matters is optics. If we look like we're starting a family, the clause becomes untouchable. The board won't challenge it. The lawyers will back off. We can renegotiate the terms through a family-friendly lens. Elliot's wording wasn't airtight there. We could. I cut her off. You're unbelievable. No, I'm strategic, she snapped. You think your little moment of moral superiority is going to help either of us? This isn't about love, Curtis. It's about leverage. We have it together, or we both walk away with nothing. For the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't about a baby. It wasn't even about her father's money. It was about control. Callie would rather build a lie and live in it than admit she ever lost. I'll have my lawyer call you, I said flatly, turning toward the door. And then she dropped one more bomb. If you walk out now, she said softly, you'll never find out who the real father is, but he's someone you know, someone close. I turned back slowly. What's that supposed to mean? But she just smiled, the cold, satisfied kind, and picked up her wine glass. Sleep on it, Curtis. I didn't sleep that night. I drove around for hours, engine humming low while my thoughts screamed. Her words echoed in my head like a looped audio file. He's someone you know, someone close. And the worst part? She wanted me to obsess. That was the whole point. She dangled it like bait, knowing I'd take it, knowing I couldn't resist the need to know who had been close enough to me, bold enough, treacherous enough to cross that line. By morning, I had a short list. Not because I had evidence, but because I had gut instincts. The problem was, Callie and I had spent the past few years drifting. I worked late. She traveled often. And in that space, there were people. People we let into our circle. Friends. Colleagues. Family. One name kept circling back, Jonas. He was my childhood best friend. Best man at our wedding. Helped me move into our first apartment. He even gave a speech at her father's retirement gala. I remember him saying, Callie and Curtis are a reminder that love doesn't care about odds. It just finds a way. Looking back, I wonder if he said that with a straight face, or if he was already in too deep. The moment that haunts me now? Last summer. I'd thrown a barbecue in our backyard. Small group, Callie, Jonas, a few neighbors. I'd run inside to grab more plates, and when I came back out, I saw her brushing something off Jonas' shirt. Nothing scandalous, nothing overt. But it was the way he looked at her. That flicker, like something had happened that hadn't been addressed. And she didn't look away. At the time, I chalked it up to paranoia. But now, I can't unsee it. I called Jonas that afternoon. Asked if he could meet for coffee. I didn't mention Callie. I didn't even hint at the will. Just said I needed a friend. He agreed immediately. We met at a small cafe near the river. I got there early. Watched every car that pulled in. When he finally arrived, he greeted me like nothing was off. Same smile. Same firm handshake. Same Jonas. But when we sat down and I told him, straight-faced, Callie says she's pregnant, and that the father might be someone close to me, the mask slipped. His eyes did this tiny, involuntary twitch. He covered it quickly, took a sip of coffee and said, Wow, man, that's heavy. Too calm. Too neutral. He was choosing his words like landmines. You think it could be me? He asked eventually. I stared at him. Should I? He laughed. That nervous kind of laugh people do when they're cornered. Curtis, come on. I would never. He trailed off. I never what, Jonas? His mouth opened, then closed. He leaned back in the chair and looked out the window. Okay, he said finally, quiet. It happened once. A mistake. Over a year ago. You and Callie were going through stuff. She was vulnerable. I was drunk. It was stupid. I thought it was buried. I felt everything go numb. Like my entire body had stepped outside itself. He kept talking. It wasn't an affair. It didn't mean anything. I haven't even seen her in months. I didn't know she was. She's not. I cut in. Not for sure. But she's using the idea. She's playing everyone. Jonas leaned forward, suddenly desperate. Please don't tell my wife. And just like that, another thread unraveled. He'd built his own house of cards too. I left him at that cafe. I didn't look back. That night, I got a text from Callie. So, did you find your answer? She was baiting me again, testing me. But this time I had my own plan. I didn't respond to her text right away. I let her wait. That was new for me. I was always the one pacing, typing and deleting, wondering how to phrase things so she wouldn't twist them into something they weren't. But not this time. This time, I let her sweat. And I knew she would. Callie hated silence because silence meant loss of control. The truth about Jonas burned in my chest. I replayed the conversation 100 times. His face. His voice. The casual way he confessed betrayal like it was a parking ticket. He had been part of our lives for decades, and she used that, they used that, to make me the fool in my own marriage. But I wasn't angry anymore. Not the same kind of anger. This was something colder, sharper, strategic. I knew what Callie wanted. She wanted to hold me hostage with the pregnancy claim, dangle it just long enough for me to play along. And if the child was Jonas's, which I now believed it was, she'd still find a way to pin me to it legally. Make me the paper father. Keep her money. Keep her image. And maybe, just maybe, punish both Jonas and me at the same time. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. I was starting my own. 2 days later, I requested a private meeting. No lawyers. No pretense. Just me and her. She agreed, of course. She was curious. Callie always had to be in the room where decisions were made, or she'd find a way to burn the building down. We met at a neutral spot, a hotel bar overlooking the city, dimly lit, quiet. She arrived looking like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. Polished, confident, predatory. I came in wearing a t-shirt and jacket, no ring. Let her notice that detail. She sat down and offered a faint smirk. So, did you figure it out? I did, I said plainly. She arched a brow. And I don't care. That threw her. You don't care who the father is? She asked, genuinely confused. No, I said, because I'm not interested in being part of this story anymore. Her smile faded. I'm not staying married. I'm not playing the clause. And I'm not helping you protect your inheritance. What I am going to do is offer you 2 options. She folded her arms, but I could see the crack in her posture. She didn't like the tone. She didn't like that I was leading. Option 1, I continued. We both go public, mutually agreed divorce. No cheating, no drama. Just a clean break. You don't challenge the clause, you forfeit the money, and you walk away with your dignity intact. She said nothing. Option 2, I leaned in. I release the signed statement from Jonas. I tell the estate lawyers everything. His admission, your timing, the pregnancy lie, the manipulation. And when the media gets hold of it, your family name will rot before the board even finishes the first round of hearings. Callie blinked. Once, then again, but she didn't speak. I sat back. You think you're the only one who can play chess. You're not. You're just not used to someone flipping the board. She picked up her wine glass, trying to hide the tremble in her hand. You'd really walk away from all that money? Just to hurt me? No, I said quietly. I'm walking away because it's the only way to save myself. Hurting you? That's just a consequence of your actions. She opened her mouth like she was about to argue, but for the first time since this nightmare started, she had nothing to say. I stood, dropped the envelope on the table, Jonas's confession notarized, and walked away without looking back. But I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. 3 weeks passed after that final meeting. Callie never responded directly to the options I gave her, but her silence was her answer. The divorce filing was withdrawn quietly. Not amended. Not revised. Withdrawn. Just like that. No public statement, no fight. She knew she'd lost. I never released Jonas's statement. I didn't have to. Callie took care of it herself. From what I heard through a mutual friend, she cut ties with him almost immediately. His wife found out anyway, no thanks to me, and their perfect little suburban image crumbled just like ours had. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt distance, like all of it had happened to someone else. The estate lawyers reached out a week later. Apparently, Elliot had added a postscript clause that hadn't been activated until both parties ceased legal or performative participation in the union. In plain English, if neither of us tried to fake it for the money, the funds would default into a philanthropic trust, one I'd now been appointed to co-manage. It wasn't personal wealth. I wasn't suddenly rich, but I was something better, free, and strangely, part of something good. The fund was focused on rebuilding small manufacturing towns, the very towns Elliot had helped strip bare. Maybe this was his version of redemption. Maybe it was mine too. I moved out of the city, found a little rental near the coast, started volunteering at a local workshop that trains laid-off workers in welding and design. My skills were rusty, but it felt real. No lies, no contracts, no games. Sometimes, I think about how it all unraveled. The betrayal, the manipulation, the false pregnancy, the humiliation. But none of that defines me anymore. I was angry, yes, lost definitely, but I found something I didn't know I'd been missing all those years myself. The man who waited for her to come home, the man who begged for answers, the man who stood outside locked doors, he's gone. And in his place is someone I'm finally proud to be. No more revenge. No more pretending. Just peace. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. What moment in this story shocked you the most? The clause, the pregnancy lie, or the final twist with the trust? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another jaw-dropping story.